you come at a special moment for us when, as I mentioned earlier, and you yourself aware, a new government has been formed, bringing together the two major parties to ensure that the process of democracy continues in the country and that we can repair and strengthen the institutions that have been damaged in the last decade. The functioning of democracy, as you all are aware, depends on a large number of institutions, not on us as individuals. And with a history of democratic activity as old as that of New Zealand, as when the British came to New Zealand and Sri Lanka and to introduce the reforms of 1835, the previous decade did more damage to us than whatever shortcomings we had in the previous period. And this is for a nation which is used to the South Asian style of politics. But with President Maithripala Sirisena, who leads the other party, heading a national government, we've also had the opportunity of becoming a highly competitive market economy with emphasis on the concerns of the poorer segments of the society and making opportunities for all those who aspire to enter the middle class by their own enterprise and their own efforts. We have to reward enterprise and ensure all those who make that effort and succeed find their true place in society. So thank you for coming here, and also it gives me great pleasure that Colombo has become democracy in the world. One of its major political parties and the present party in power, the BJP, has joined the IDU. It strengthens the IDU as a whole, and more so the IDU, the APDU, because as we found it difficult to function by just having Sri Lanka, Maldives, South Korea and Taiwan. But the presence of the BJP means that we will be able to ensure more and more political parties join us, and we can also reach out to some of the parties in Southeast Asia and even into the Middle East and Central Asia. So these are the issues that we will discuss of how we expand the APDU and IDU in Europe itself. Again, thank you for coming in here, and to have Prime Minister Keys and all of you. And I hope that we'll be able to see many of you coming to relax here and let us know and let the International Relations Division of the UNP be informed in advance. So as far as yesterday goes, you can't spend 24 hours doing politics. The UNP, the former President Jayawardena said, stop at 8 in the evening and start at 8 in the morning. So in between, sometimes life does become a cabaret. And I hope you all enjoyed it yesterday, and gives me great pleasure to have the Prime Minister of New Zealand presiding, because one of the beacons for us was the changes made by Margaret Thatcher, and at the most difficult time, it was New Zealand and Sri Lanka who stood by UK. So thank you again, Prime Minister. We are meeting in Sri Lanka after a long break, nearly a decade and a half. But we are also meeting on an occasion which is historic for Sri Lanka, that we have a government that is committed to good governance and a government that is committed to economic reforms. This was made possible by a coalition of political parties and civil society organizations that got together in November 2004 14, and now Eric understands why he had to skip the leaders' meeting in Seoul to put a common candidate, the then General Secretary of Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Mr. Maithripala Sirisena, who was elected the President of Sri Lanka on January 8. At a subsequent parliamentary election, we all obtained a mandate to form a national government. So this is the first time, I think, in our part of the world that we've had a government of the two main parties without wartime conditions or economic collapse. But what we had was a collapse of democracy, and that is even more vital. And therefore we have to now restore those institutions. Institutions built up from about 1835. Institutions like the Supreme Court, the Legislative Council, the professions, the media which came later, all in the 19th century. What we realized is what was built over a century and a half can be destroyed within a decade. And you need at least another decade for the wounds to heal. And that's the process we started, not only politically, but also the reconciliation process between the different ethnic groups, between the religious groups, to ensure that politics of communalism and politics based on religious hatred are put aside. And we've been helped in this by the Council of Religions, which is headed by the leaders, Buddhist prelates of Sri Lanka, the cardinal, Catholic bishops, the Protestant bishops, the heads, many leading members of the Muslim and Hindu clergy. So you come here on a momentous occasion, and it is my duty to place on record that during the most difficult times, the support we received from the IDU and the APDU. Thank you again. And today, we have Prime Minister John Keys, who will be chairing the IPDU session tomorrow. But it gives me great pleasure to be with you all today. And in the morning, you all heard the political, economic, and the strategic issues that Sri Lanka faces. Actually, this part of the region is now coming into limelight. Sri Lanka, India, the whole of South Asia, the strategic value of the Indian Ocean, the rising economies of South and Southeast Asia are the ones that will be in the forefront in the coming few decades. So it gives me great pleasure that our numbers here have been strengthened by the BJP of India, which was the outcome of long discussions they've had with many of us. But again, let me welcome all of you here, and especially to place on record the help given to us by Eric and by Bruce during our most difficult days. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation to be back in Sri Lanka and to say how much I'm enjoying leading the delegation of business people and officials that I have with me. As you pointed out, this is my second visit to your country, and I can see for myself the amazing progress that is taking place under your leadership and under the wise counsel of your ministers. And so I congratulate you on what you're doing, and thank you for the opportunity to come visit. Can I also thank you for the agreements we've signed today, and for the gift of a second elephant for the Auckland Zoo. As I was saying in our meetings, the first elephant has gained 700 kilograms in 1 year So it is loving its life in New Zealand, and I'm sure its friend will have such a good time as well in New Zealand. And the children and visitors to Auckland Zoo are very much enjoying seeing the elephant and learning more about the relationship with Sri Lanka. You are dealing, I think, very effectively with challenging issues of reconciliation and previous issues of corruption that you have to deal with. And we congratulate you on the leadership that you're showing. We know these are always challenging issues for any leader, but we wish you the very best as you undertake that important work. From New Zealand's point of view, we see Sri Lanka as a real shining light in the Asian region. We can see the economic reform program that you're undertaking, and we see the enormous opportunities for your 21 million people, but also for greater opportunities of engagement between New Zealand and Sri Lanka. Yours is an increasingly wealthy country. You are developing more and more middle-income consumers, providing greater opportunities for your people. And I think it's in the development of your country that New Zealand and Sri Lanka can play such an important role. We have been, for a long period of time, had involvement in your country in a variety of forms, but most pronounced obviously through our dairy sector and through the work of Fonterra, who have been selling dairy products into Sri Lanka for a very long period of time. This afternoon I have an opportunity to go and see the model farm that's being established here, and that's a great opportunity to share technology and idea and know-how and the expertise that New Zealand farmers have developed for well over 100 years. It allows them to become, it has allowed them to become the most efficient and productive farmers in the world. And we can already see with the work that we are doing with the model farm and the transfer of that technology, the capacity to make your farmers wealthier, more productive, and more able to supply the products that your citizens need. We too think tourism is very important, and I know that there are a great many New Zealanders that would love to come to your country, to holiday here, to see the beauty of your country and the things that you're achieving. Equally, we have a great many businesses with us in the ICT sector, in the services sector, in export education, and representing a great many areas where there is much collaboration that can take place. So I'm looking forward over the next 2.5 days to reacquaint myself with the beauty of Colombo, to continue to see firsthand all of the development that's taking place. As you rightfully pointed out, we've extended an invitation to both the Prime Minister and, of course, yourself. And I think over time New Zealand would like to build a greater presence here in Sri Lanka. We see real opportunities, and we see the greater capacity for our two countries to work closer together. And so there is much for us to explore. We have a lot on the agenda over the next day or so, but I look forward to discussing those important issues and how we can work more collaboratively together. But in the short term, we congratulate you on what you're achieving. We wish you the very best for your country and your people. We know that you have a very busy work program set across a great many areas, and we just give you our best and most forthright support in achieving your ambitions for the great people of Sri Lanka. So thank you for having me here, and look forward to exchanging more dialogue over lunch and dinner this evening. It's great to see so many people joining us. I think one of the great things about the IDU is to make sure that we spread the message that we have of wanting to be seen to helping get centre-right parties elected to government and to ensure that centre-right governments stay in office right around the world is one that we should take to lots of different locations. And in recent times, of course, we've been in Korea, in Sarajevo, most recently in Morocco, and obviously now in Sri Lanka. And I think the opportunity to go to a range of different locations around the world helps us spread that message. And I think it's fair to say that that message is working, because in the last hour or so, Andrew Holness has won the Jamaican elections, and so we have a sister party that's come into government. So we obviously there's a great deal that I know we want to talk about in our sessions, and we'll go through those obviously when after the Prime Minister's had an opportunity to speak and when the press have left the room. But I'm duty bound to say, as a New Zealander, that there's a few of us who have come on this delegation up to Sri Lanka. But I just want to acknowledge Sir Don McKinnon, who many of you may remember was the former Secretary General of the Commonwealth and did a fantastic job, I think, on behalf of the Commonwealth. And so, Sir Don, it's great just to have you with us along with the other New Zealand delegation. I can also just make mention of our Treasurer, who has been extremely unwell. Lord Ashcroft, as many of you might know, was struck down by a sort of unknown illness, really, which led to a number of visits to intensive care in hospital. I sent him a text last night to tell him that I'd bring his best wishes to the meeting today, but he told me he's been in intensive care 3 times in the last 12 weeks. So it's been fairly difficult for him. I think he's now coming through that. Told me he lost 12 kgs. That was about the best thing that had happened. But the rest of the process was very difficult. So obviously we're looking forward to having Michael back with us in due course. There are a big range of issues I know we're going to discuss. I know the Foreign Affairs Committee had an opportunity to discuss those yesterday, so we look forward to the reports on those. I do want to make particular mention, though, of, because we're in the region, of our concern about the ongoing situation in the Maldives, particularly against former President of the NDP, leader Mohamed Nasheed. We have real concerns about what we see, and it's the responsibility of an organisation like ours to stand up for the rights of those that we see that are being unfairly treated because of their role in politics. But there'll be a great deal more, I'm sure, that the team from the Maldives will want to talk to us about. Also, I just, I suppose, make mention that we live obviously in pretty interesting times, but one of the things that is starting to make a bit of progress around the world is trade. New Zealand's part of the 12 countries that formed the Trans-Pacific Partnership recently, along obviously with Canada, who are in the room with us, Australia, the United States, a great many countries. And I think there's a lot that can be done if we can start opening up those avenues of opportunity for our countries to do well. So that's an important part of what we're doing. Finally, we'll be going on later on in the session to look at new memberships. But I do want to make particular mention, we've got Ram here from the BJP in India. We are going to be a much stronger organisation when we have a representation from the ruling party in India. They're the second most populated country in the world, of course, and having a representative amongst us is all about broadening out the reach and the influence, I think, of the IDU. So notwithstanding that presentation will need to be made, and I'm sure a strong case will need to be put up, Ram, we want to welcome you. You're amongst friends, so make sure you enjoy your time that you're with us. So, Prime Minister, can I just pass the floor over to you, but before I do so, just to reiterate, firstly, the gratitude for the hosting that you've done. We've had a wonderful bilateral meeting. As I've mentioned since I've been here, I mean, the IDU was last in Sri Lanka in 2000, but actually I was last here in 2013 for the Commonwealth Heads of Government. And the country has gone from ahead enormously under your leadership in the last 12 months. It's obvious for everyone to see how successful Sri Lanka is becoming. We know that you've done tremendous work around peace and reconciliation. We know that those are challenging issues. And we also acknowledge at a personal level that you have been a very long-standing supporter of the IDU. As we discussed at dinner last night, came into politics in 1977. So it's nearly 40 years of contribution to public life in Sri Lanka, and we just acknowledge all the things you've done. So thank you for having us in your country, for hosting us so generously, and pass the floor to you, but just acknowledge what you're doing in this most beautiful country.